Hello, Copic in the Craft Room fans. Michelle Houghton here. I'm coming to you today with a Stamp AnnieThing stamp, and we are going to be doing a little no-line coloring on her. This adorable stamp is one of the collection from Stamp AnnieThing. She has hundreds of them, so if you have not seen her stuff, you need to stop by their shop. I have stamped this in a light pink ink and by Memento. And I am working on, let's see, I think hammer mill paper today. So if those are top questions you want to ask, the first thing I'm actually going to do, it's hard to see that number, sorry, it's a 0.05 multi-liner, Copic multi-liner specifically. And I'm going to put back in her eyelashes and her pupils because those I don't want to have stay pink, and I do want them to stay black. The other thing I add when I do a Stamp AnnieThing image is, of course, her little mouth, because all of the Stamp AnnieThing images have a really fun open mouth smile going, and so we're going to put that black back in there instead of trying to fill it with Copic. Now, I did switch multi-liners. It's to a 0.3, and that's just to fill in those pupils. That 0.05 is super fine. If you've not used those lately, you want to get them nice and vertical and work way up on that tip so you don't break that nib. For her skin tone, I'm going to start with an E50, and I'm filling in the face because she's got on these long sleeve pajamas and long kind of flannel pants. I'm actually going to go ahead and do these other. I'm going to start with her face, and then I'll have those other little touches of skin that I come back to, and those will go really quick. So I've got E21 coming in next, and I'm coming in. I do most of these images with a general front lighting in that we've just got a general overhead or sunshine. She's probably overhead since she's in her pajamas. I do add a little nose by kind of creating an L shape, and sorry I slid down there a little bit. And I use E11 to do those deepest shadows. So notice it's just coming in from the sides and the top, kind of curves the face a little bit, creating that round shape, and that's really what I'm aiming for. I'm just creating shape. I'm softening that back with my E21 and then coming back into that lighter area with my E50 and softening those edges. Now I should have stopped here. When you see the final card, I mess with the skin quite a bit more, and I should have waited on that. I'm actually adding a little bit of E93 to the cheeks, and I did a little on her tongue, kind of curving those eyes. That's one of the challenges with Stamp AnnieThing images is those eyes are open, and so leaving the whites of her eyes white to me sometimes is a little bit of a challenge. And that's where I ended up on this particular image, overworking it just a little bit. So a little bit of E04 at the corners of her tongue, and then softening with E93. Now on the neck and the hands, I'm actually starting with the E21 and then adding that E11. I go back in and soften with the E50 just to soften that up a little bit. So we've got the skin, and I did it separately just because the no line coloring, I didn't know if I'd lose that kind of chin and neckline. And so doing it separately sometimes helps, especially when I'm doing a no line coloring, doing sections at a time. So the hair I'm going to do the same way. I'm going to start with this top section, and I based it in a YR31, and now that's a YR24 and a YR27. These flicks are coming from the part out and then the tips up. E23 is the last color I'm going to use, and they're going to see me jump back to YR24 to soften. Notice I started at the start points, and then the YR31 comes into the center and flicks out, so kind of from the highlight out. So notice there's a little bit of light or white in that highlight area to start. I'm going to lose that at the very end. So YR24, YR27, and then that E23 is going to come next. Way up on the tip of my marker nib there, fewer flicks as I get darker, coming back with the YR24, and then notice that again, that YR31 comes from the center and works out. That's when I kind of lose that white and it softens when I use those two colors again, just to soften those edges. I'm trying not to lose the texture. Now notice again, I'm still not filling in all of the hair, but I'm kind of doing sections at a time. I waited and added my dark part that's going to be around her neck and falling behind her shoulders. I did not put the lightest color there. I'm actually starting with my YR24 because I know that portion of her hair is going to get quite a bit darker. So the front pieces that kind of fall in front of her got that YR31, and then now they have the flicks of the YR24. And this is where I get a little lost in some of these pieces, so I'm trying to slow myself down. YR27, working back into that back area, just a few flicks on the front sections to keep that kind of popped forward. And I end up accidentally going over her arm a little bit. This is easy to do with no line coloring. Those lines are so light, and as soon as I get some of those darker colors in, they disappear. So I'm going to correct that here in a minute. YR31 on those front panels to kind of keep them to the front. YR24 is what I come back and do a little bit of softening one in the back. Now you can see that on that left side, so I'm using a little colorless blender to push. Remember, it's going to move it. It's not going to erase it, but I'm kind of pushing at that color. I grab a paper towel here in a second, and I'm going to put it underneath, testing a few pinks first, RVs to go on the pajamas, and what color I might use for some polka dots. Pushing a little more. Notice I'm taking breaks in between so it dries in between. I'm trying to push it to the back, so I put a piece of paper towel underneath to help absorb that. RV91 is the starting color for her little pajamas, and I'm going to start with just the bottoms. That way I can see, and I can still do a little correcting on her sleeve. RV93 is next. That's giving a little bit of shape to those cylinder legs. And RV95 is going to finish that off. Notice I'm really trying to do kind of one piece at a time. That's allowing me to keep track of where those pieces are, because those pink lines just disappear immediately. So RV91 on the shirt, going nice and slow. She's got a blanket that comes up above that arm just a little bit that she's holding on to. So I'm kind of working from these kind of seam lines and out. This was that RV95, and then I'm coming back in this time with the RV93. So I did this a little out of order, and I really did that because of the no line coloring. So I did my lightest color and laid it down. Then I did my darkest so I could see where those seams were. Then I came back with my midtone, RV93. Now I'm coming back with my highlight color or base color, RV91, and softening that. So again, we don't see those outlines, we're just seeing her. Polka dots are going to be RV34, and I'm doing these kind of irregular sizes and irregular placement. Just a fun little detail to add. You could have done, you could do like opaque white, and that would be really cute too. But polka dot PJs are appropriate. I realized that her bunny slippers have little eyes and whiskers, so I came back with my 0.05 multi-liner and hit that real quick. These little slippers are getting little squiggles around the edge with C1, and then I used some colorless blender, and then I decided it wasn't quite enough. So I brought over my BV20, add a little more to those edges so it really looks fluffy. Touch of RV34 in the ears and nose. I'm going to soften the ears with colorless blender and the slippers themselves. And then I'm going to go for a series of Bs for the blankets. And this is B6s. So I've got a B60 coming in. And a B66 is going into those kind of lower spots and folds on this little blanket. So I did that first. And then my mid-tone is going to come in and soften that. So it's going to work out. So I created these little darts or little V's with my darkest color. And then I'm making them wider and taller with my midtone, and then extending those waves. I'm using the C1 on the blanket now in the lighter area, and honestly, this is a mistake on my part. I was supposed to be picking up the B60 again, and what I realized after watching the film is that I picked up the C1 instead. The caps look very similar, and so it literally is an honest mistake. It looks just fine, and it's a real similar color, but that is why you saw a cool gray come in there instead of the light B60. So I'm going to finish that off. I'm putting a little bit of this dark back in, and I've switched back to kind of real time so you can see how slow I'm going. This particular image took me right around an hour, or probably about an hour, 20 minutes, just because I do have to break it down a little more. I have to work in smaller sections with no line coloring, so it does take a little bit longer. If I've got it all pre-planned, I can probably do it right around 45 minutes to an hour. So if I did her again, I probably could do her right around 45 minutes. But it does take longer. And it has a little more patience involved. Thank you so much, Stamp AnnieThing, for your adorable stamps. I continue to enjoy them thoroughly. Make sure you check in at scrapweaver.com for all my live teaching opportunities. I've got 2 more Copic colleges coming up this spring. Thank you for joining me today. I sure hope you have enjoyed and learned something new. If you have any questions, please post those below. I try to check in regularly to check those all out. Have a happy, colorful day.